Everyone is telling you the same story. New York is dead. They point to the U-Haul rates, the billionaire exodus to Florida, and the sunset of a legacy brand. But they're all making the same mistake. They're looking at the software of New York, the taxes, the rent, the current administration. Those are just programs running on the system, and they get updated every election cycle. To see the future, you have to look at the hardware. Today, we're stripping away the skyscrapers to look at the cheat code written into the earth itself. Because you can move a headquarters to Austin, but you can't move a drowned river valley. You can't relocate the only sea-level mountain gap on the continent. And you cannot disrupt a monopoly on 20% of the world's freshwater. New York isn't an empire in decline. It's a geographic fortress, and it's been winning for 10,000 years. And for the next 10 minutes, I'm going to show you why it is effectively permanent. Reason 1. The Hudson, the billion-dollar drowned valley. We start with the most famous river in the world, which, scientifically speaking, is not a river. To understand why New York City exists exactly where it does, we have to go back to the Wisconsin glaciation about 20,000 years ago. A massive ice sheet, miles thick, carved its way through the Appalachian rock. When it retreated, it didn't just leave a stream behind, it left a drowned river valley. In a normal river like the Mississippi, the water flows one way, down to the sea. The riverbed is always above sea level until the very end. But the Hudson is a fjord-like estuary. Because the floor of the river was carved so deep by the glaciers, it is actually below sea level all the way up to Albany, 150 miles inland. The economic cheat code. Why does this matter for the algorithm of power? In most parts of the world, if you want to move massive amounts of goods, you have to stop at the coast, offload onto a train or a truck, and pay a massive premium for last-mile delivery. But in New York, the Atlantic Ocean effectively flows 150 miles into the heart of the state. Deep-water, ocean-going cargo ships don't need to stop at the coast. They can sail directly to the center of the region, while other cities like Savannah, Charleston, or even New Orleans have to spend hundreds of millions of dollars every year dredging, literally scooping mud out of the river just to keep it deep enough for modern ships. New York sits on a glacial gift that stays deep for free. It is a liquid highway that never dries up, rarely freezes due to the saltwater mix, and provides a natural, sheltered harbor that is immune to the massive Atlantic swells that batter other East Coast ports. New York didn't build its port. It was handed a geographic monopoly by a retreating glacier. Reason 2. The Mohawk Gap, the only hole in the wall. If the Hudson is the highway, the Mohawk Valley is the gate line. This is the single most important geographic feature in American history, and most people have never even heard of it. Look at the Appalachian Mountains. From the northern tip of Maine down to the heart of Georgia, this mountain range is a 1,500-mile wall of solid rock. For the first 200 years of American history, this wall was an impenetrable barrier. If you were a farmer in Ohio in 1800, getting your grain to the world market was a nightmare. You had to haul it over the mountains by mule, which was so expensive it actually cost more to move the grain than the grain itself was worth. But look closer at the map. There is one break, just one. In upstate New York, between the Adirondacks to the north and the Catskills to the south, the mountains simply stop. This is the Mohawk Gap. It is the only place in North America where you can walk from the Atlantic Ocean to the Great Lakes and never climb higher than 600 feet above sea level. The War for the Gap. This isn't just a fun fact. It's the reason the British and the French fought the 7 Years' War. It's the reason the Iroquois Confederacy was the most powerful indigenous force on the continent. They controlled the door to the interior. In the 1820s, DeWitt Clinton pushed for the Erie Canal through this gap. People called it Clinton's Folly. They thought you couldn't dig a ditch through 363 miles of wilderness. But geography was on his side. Because the gap was so flat, they didn't need a complex system of thousands of locks to climb over mountains. When the canal opened, the cost of moving freight dropped by 95% overnight. This one hole in the wall is why New York City became the financial capital of the world while Philadelphia and Boston, which were both bigger and wealthier at the time, became regional hubs. Every bit of wealth from the American Midwest, the timber, the wheat, the steel, had to squeeze through this one narrow corridor in New York to reach the world. Today, the canal is for tourists, but the monopoly remains. Look at a map of the world's most critical fiber optic cables, the CSX rail lines, and the I-90 thruway. They are all stacked on top of each other in that same 20-mile wide gap. When you own the only door to the house, you get to charge everyone to walk through it. Reason 3. The Great Lakes, the 21st century oil. Now, let's pivot to the future. If the 19th century was about coal and the 20th century was about oil, the 21st century is about freshwater. We are currently witnessing a massive migration to the Sun Belt, states like Arizona, Nevada, and Texas. But these states are living on borrowed time. They are fighting over the depleting Colorado River and draining ancient aquifers that won't refill for thousands of years. New York, however, has a geographic bank account that is virtually bottomless. It is the only state with significant frontage on both Lake Ontario and Lake Erie. Together, the Great Lakes hold 20% of the world's surface fresh water. The water wall advantage. There is a legal framework called the Great Lakes Compact. It effectively bans any state outside the basin from piping that water away. This is the ultimate defensive moat. This means that while Phoenix or Las Vegas might eventually run out of water to support their populations and their semiconductor plants, which require millions of gallons of water, New York is sitting on a sea of liquid gold that can't be stolen. As climate volatility increases, industry follows the water. We are already seeing Rust Belt cities like Buffalo and Syracuse being scouted by tech firms for massive chip manufacturing plants, like the Micron project, because they have what the desert doesn't: an infinite supply of the world's most precious resource. New York's geography ensures that even if the city fluctuates, the state remains the reservoir of the continent. Reason 4. Niagara, the infinite battery. But New York doesn't just have the water, it has the energy. Most people see Niagara Falls as a place for honeymoons or a tourist trap. Geographers see it as a geologic infinite battery. Because Lake Erie is 325 feet higher than Lake Ontario, that massive volume of water is essentially a giant battery waiting to be discharged. The Niagara Power Project is one of the largest hydroelectric plants in the world. The reliability edge. This is the part the green energy skeptics ignore. Unlike solar power, which requires the sun to shine, or wind power, which requires the breeze to blow, Niagara provides baseload power. It is constant. It is permanent. It is 24/7. This gives New York a green energy profile that other states have to spend trillions to manufacture. In a world moving toward carbon neutrality, having a 12,000-year-old waterfall doing the heavy lifting for your grid is the ultimate competitive edge. It's why companies that require massive 24/7 power, like data centers and AI server farms, are quietly eyeing Western New York. They aren't looking for a tax break, they're looking for the gravity. Reason 5. The Adirondack Fortress. Finally, let's talk about the end game. We've talked about trade, water, and energy. Now let's talk about climate stability. While the media focuses on rising sea levels and the potential sinking of lower Manhattan, there is a secret happening in the north: the Adirondack Dome. The Adirondacks aren't like the rest of the Appalachians. They aren't part of that long, folded chain. They are a geologic anomaly, a massive dome of ancient billion-year-old rock that is actively rising. While the rest of the East Coast is slowly subsiding, sinking into the ocean due to post-glacial rebound, the Adirondacks are moving up. It is a 6 million-acre park, larger than Yellowstone, Yosemite, and the Grand Canyon combined. That is effectively a self-contained fortress. It has its own internal water systems, massive timber reserves, and a granite foundation that is immune to the tectonic instability seen on the West Coast. As the world gets more chaotic and coastal regions face increasing pressure, this upstate fortress is becoming the ultimate insurance policy for the state's survival. The conclusion: the destiny of granite. So when you add it all up, the drowned valley that invites the world in, the mountain gap that controls the continent's interior, the fresh water that sustains life, and the rising dome that provides safety, you realize something. New York isn't a legacy brand in decline. It is a geographic masterpiece. You can hate the subway, you can leave the city, but you cannot argue with the granite. If you left New York, what was the one thing geography couldn't solve for you? And if you stayed, do you feel the power of the cheat code? Drop a comment below. I read every single one of them.